Welcome everybody back into NerdSesh. As always, I'm Carson Bradburn. Alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we got a quick little bonus show for you all because the Olympic knockout rounds have begun. So we are going to be reacting to the quarterfinals and doing a little preview on the semifinals. Just some quick talk for you all today because this is only basketball that we have. And it is pretty fun basketball, I gotta say. So we'll start with a dominant Team USA victory, Logan. No surprise there, but they just easily dispensed of Brazil. What did you take away from that performance? What stood out to you on the Team USA side?
One, I was super impressed with the defense from the U.S. and just transition, man. All game long, they were getting out on the break, creating easy buckets. And big shout out to Kevin Durant. In that game, he became the United States all-time leading Olympic scorer, man. He comes into rare company, man. I mean, KD's one of the greatest Olympians of all time now, dude. Just based off that, based off his resume. Brazil, I don't think ever had the size to compete with the U.S., man. That's one aspect that I think the U.S. just has such a big advantage over. Not only like the talent and skill gap, everybody on the U.S. is just big as hell. The biggest guy for Brazil was Bruno Caboclo. The guys I was really impressed with in this game specifically, though, I thought this was one of the better games we've seen from Joel Embiid in these Olympics. And his floor spacing, Carson, is just such an invaluable weapon for this offense and what it does to open up the floor. Having a big man that can stretch the floor like that, taking two bodies out of the paint effectively, I just thought it opened up so much easy offense for them with backdoor cuts, with easy layups at the rim. Tatum had some. Steph had a nice cut. Booker had some. And I also don't know if French people have ever seen a putback dunk before, dude. The one that Anthony Davis had off the Steph missed three. They pan the camera to the background, and everybody is just in absolute awe. Like, everyone's jaw is on the floor. I'm not surprised by this one. Great game from Joel Embiid, great defensive performance, and a great game from Devin Booker, too. I don't think Brazil really had the bodies to compete with us, but I do think it's going to be really interesting in the semifinals, man. I don't think the U.S. is going to run away with either of the games in the semifinal or in the final if they get there.
Yeah, the difficulty level is obviously about to jump up significantly, and they did pick up a comfortable win against Serbia in the group stage in what was a very interesting, fun game, and it was really competitive for a lot of it, but the USA pulled away pretty convincingly at the end. But Brazil isn't really much of a litmus test here. I mean, we're still watching like 40-year-old, legitimately, Marcelo Huertas be one of their most important players. Bruno Caboclo being far and away their best player in this game. Like, you can only get so much of a gauge on how the fellas are playing from that. But I do think that they've clearly rounded into form here. And you think about the team that was in the exhibition stage of the Olympic buildup, like barely escaping against South Sudan. That team is gone, and they are playing at a higher level right now. And I think that Embiid is an important part of that, as you mentioned, because he has been much maligned for just the awkwardness of his fit in the starting lineup. The fact that he is sort of by his nature this incredibly high volume centerpiece offensively, who often is a ball stopper, who often is going to focus on isolating, facing up, and really dictating the style of play for the entire team, which doesn't work nearly as well when you have this sort of overwhelming talent, and also his lack of defensive versatility compared to an AD or Bam, his lack of vertical spacing compared to those guys. Like, all of those things had been issues, had felt clunky, but I thought this was a really good Embiid game overall. I thought that he played some good drop defensively, and I thought that for the most part, he was attacking pretty efficiently within the flow of the offense. You mentioned his floor spacing, his shooting. He has a nice putback. He's available as a finisher around the rim off of a dump-off pass. That's the sort of stuff that you need from him to fit in a bit more seamlessly. And then you just mentioned, like, the combination of athleticism and skill that the U.S. has as far and away the best basketball team on the planet is just remarkable. And particularly, it is that ability to turn defense into offense. As you mentioned, they have 16 stocks in this game and are just repeatedly pushing the pace so effectively. They have so many athletes in the open floor, and they have so many shooters in the open floor. And the three-point shooting has just been absurd from Team USA throughout the Olympics. Really, you just see the ability of these ridiculously skilled basketball players to shoot over the top of people, to get open in transition. So I want to give props to Embiid. I want to continue to give props to Devin Booker because he has been such a steady, solid presence for Team USA, has been a guy who's embraced doing the little things defensively, who has been unselfish, and he was just ridiculous as a jump shooter in this game. And the starting five overall, not just Embiid, has raised a lot of questions about kind of what Steve Kerr is doing, right? There's been some weird lineup stuff there, and they've consistently stuck with this 3-guard look with Steph and Drew and Devin Booker, which is just a little bit strange when you have Kevin Durant and you have Jason Tatum, and you want to have like a strong point of attack defender in Drew out there. I understand Steph, even though he's been really struggling throughout most of the Olympics, hasn't had one dynamic performance. He's just kind of an auto start, especially on a Steve Kerr coach team. And for his offensive value, that absolutely makes sense. And then Book has been playing so well. So I don't particularly want to criticize the starting lineup at this moment, but I do think that when KD is out there on the floor with just 2 guards, when you're playing a more conventional lineup in that way, I do think that you feel the length and you feel the athleticism on this defense even a little bit more. I think the help at that point, and the Team USA did a really nice job of helping on post-ups throughout this game. I thought that they attacked the defensive glass well. But I just think that there is still more upside with Kevin Durant playing more minutes. And I think that you can kind of rotate which of the 3 guards is not necessarily playing as many minutes. Drew is obviously the weakest player out of him, Book, and Steph, but also in a situation like this, he is just such a seamless, low usage, really high defensive value, do all the little things, rebound, facilitate, that he has had a positive impact overall. But really can't complain. I mean, just another super ridiculously efficient offensive performance. Team USA is averaging 1.14 points in the half court offensively in the knockout round. That's up from 0.94 in the group stage, which is already a solid number, but 1.14 is just completely ridiculous. And there's been a lot of talk, at least there was a good amount of talk in the lead up to the Olympics about how this was going to be the most challenge that we've seen Team USA. And we can't write off that possibility because the best competition is yet to come. But I do think a lot of people who have jumped to that place have maybe just hyper-focused on the fact that so much of the great talent in the next generation, the younger players, not necessarily even like young guys, but just the under 30 crowd, is dominated by international talent. And the fact that, in my opinion, the 5 best basketball players on the planet right now are international. And so there is this feeling that there's just this overwhelming wave coming and things are evening out. But the difference maker is that the USA still has a great crop of young talent. Maybe they don't have the premier guy out of this next generation, but they still have the old generation. They still have KD and they still have LeBron and they still have Steph, all these guys playing at a really high level. And that is just what makes the talent level on this team still overwhelming. And that's where I think some people maybe were too quick to jump the gun, because I do think that the playing field is just going to get more and more level over the years. You can't deny that. The international talent is insane. But right now, the U.S. still has a very clear advantage over everybody else. And it's the combination of the 2 generations, just the insane sustained prime of these dudes who are 35 plus, in LeBron's case 40, that's just not normal at all.
I do think they have the guy of the next generation, though. I think it's clearly Ant. Like, if we're looking and like,
Wemby,
a guy. I mean, I just thought you meant for Team USA. Like,
but I'm saying they don't have the guy in the next generation. Yeah. And currently, the top 5 players who are 30 and under, well, the top 5 players on the planet, are all international guys.
For sure. And I completely agree with you that it's not going to get any easier. The play of all of these other teams, not only like the top level, but the depth, right? Like, you're just going to see more and more guys that are actually NBA caliber. And the reality is, in this next round against Serbia, the U.S. is not going to have the best player on the floor, right? It's going to be Nikola Jokic. And that's why I say it's not going to be in, just walk in the park. I know that they do beat them, and I want to be clear about something, I expect the United States to win, but that boy Yoke, man, I mean, you see the defensive coverage that he drew in this last round. I mean, consistent double teams, triple teams. Serbia has elite ball movement. They move as such a great collective, man. Everybody is on the same page defensively and offensively. And, they have some other NBA talent too. Bogdanovic. I'm not going to completely write off Serbia in the next round. Like, I think the U.S. will win because we have a talent advantage, but we don't have the best player on the court, and I think that that matters, man. And you can't guard that man in single coverage.
Yeah, you can't. And I think that Serbia's offense is phenomenal. And when we look at their quarterfinal against Australia, super clutch overtime win. Jokic just has a ridiculous series where in a matter of like a minute of this basketball game in overtime, he blocks Josh Giddey. Then he makes a key play knocking the ball off the rim. Patty Mills beats him off of a switch, but the layup is hanging up there on the rim. He knocks it off. I know a lot of people talk about liking FIBA rules. That personally is not my favorite rule, but hey, know the rules, make the play, and that's what he did. Then he gets a steal in transition from Patty Mills. Then he hits a floater to put Serbia ahead, and then he hits this spinning fadeaway to ice it. So it was a huge clutch performance from him, and he just, throughout the entire game, was multiple heads and shoulders ahead of everybody else on the floor. And that's not a surprise, but as you mentioned, you have no prayer of guarding him in the post and single coverage. And it's always just a question of when is he going to go? When is he going to get aggressive? When is he going to decide, okay, now I'm willing to post up every time down the floor for a stretch of this game? Because that's not always the case. And Australia did do a nice job of throwing some doubles at him and forcing a turnover, forcing a tougher shot, but he also made some incredible skip passes to the weak side corner, and he was able to put the defense in rotation. And Serbia is a highly skilled offense overall. Jokic is the fulcrum through whom everything runs. If it is him setting bone-crushing screens, if it is him getting a touch in the post, if it is what he can do as a roll man, he is constantly stressing the defense and demanding a huge amount of attention, but everybody around him is capable of knocking down shots. They're a very good shooting team. Everybody around him is capable of putting the ball on the floor. Everybody around him is capable of facilitating to the other guys. Like you mentioned, Bogdanovic, of course, Bogey is like the standout on this team, but you have Guduric, you have Micic, you have Petrusev, who has been playing well. So there's a lot of offensive talent.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of offensive talent on this basketball team. They're actually a 94th percentile half-court offense. The question against Team USA is just going to be how they hang defensively whatsoever, because they played some good defense down the stretch of this game against Australia, and they're engaged there. They play hard, and Jokic, I thought, played a really pretty darn good game, but also it's like Australia is a team that is lacking in high-end athletes pressuring the rim, right? They're not really going to challenge his rim protection in the same way. He made a lot of plays with his hands, but it's Josh Giddey trying to get to floater range. It's Patty Mills with his pull-up jumpers. And I thought Jokic held up well on switches as well. I thought he was able to guard those guys, but like, it's just a different level of athleticism. It's a different level of skill. Even though Australia is a very good international team, I think that that's what stood out most from the first game between Team USA and Team Serbia. It was Serbia was churning out high shot quality, and they just didn't shoot well from deep in that game. They could have shot better, and that would have made it more competitive, but they were hemorrhaging wide open threes. And basically every matchup for Team USA is a glaring mismatch on the offensive end, and it's just tough because even when Serbia is generating really good shot quality, USA is just going to generate better shot quality.
And there's no margin for error. I mean, you can't miss.
Yeah.
The other thing that exacerbates that problem is the fact that Jokic is going to be off the floor at some point, and in this game,
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, maybe they might need him every minute. Serbia got demolished in non-Jokic minutes. The commentators were talking the entire time because Australia goes on this torrential run, and they're like, when is he going to come back out here? It's a 24-point deficit that they erase. Jokic ends this game with 21 points, 14 boards, 8 assists, and 4 steals. Also, shout out to Bogdanovic. He becomes Serbia's all-time leading Olympic scorer in their country's history as well. So a legacy game for him. And I just want to give a final shout-out to Patty Mills. I was sitting here scratching my head going, damn, man, why is he not getting real NBA minutes? I know he signed with Miami last season, but we barely saw him. He was hitting everything. He had that game-tying bucket on Jokic to force OT. He looked really solid, man. It was a tough shot-making performance, so you wonder about how consistent that could be. But Patty looked really good in this one, man. FIBA Patty is just different.
He was fantastic, and I think that he's probably done, but that was just a dynamic pull-up jump shooting performance, man. Vintage Patty Mills. I do want to just reiterate a little bit more how dominant Jokic has been throughout the Olympics because it's ridiculous. He's giving you 19 points, 12 boards, 7.5 assists, and 3.5 stocks per game on 60% from the field. The only thing that isn't really going for him right now, that hasn't been going for a while, is the 3-point shot. But the good news is he at least was taking some open ones in this game. The frustrating thing is when he hits you with the slow pump fake, but the defender hasn't even really closed out yet, so he doesn't actually really get a step. I mean, when he can hit the pump fake and get to a good floater look, that's one thing. But he's got to take the open threes when they're there, because he is a good 3-point shooter. He's just been cold for a while now. But the way that he dominates the glass, particularly in these settings, is just so apparent. I mean, he gets multiple tip-ins in this game, and that's huge. I mean, Serbia was racking up offensive boards in this game. Jokic was a huge, huge part of that. You gave props to Patty Mills. On the other side for Australia, Josh Giddey was really good in this game, and he was really good throughout the Olympics. And you may be displeased by that fact, Logan, but it's just the reality. He gives you 17.5, 8 and 6 on 50% from the field, 47% from three. I personally am not moved by this 4-game stretch, but I can see how it could make you more optimistic about what he'll look like with the ball in his hands more, because that is the more natural fit for him, right? He is somebody who is at his best on ball, facilitating, trying to get to that floater. When he's hitting above the break threes like he was in this run over a small sample size, well, that makes him a significantly better offensive player. It's never been a question to me of if he's better suited in that role than in a more off-ball role. My issue has always been, where is he actually going to necessitate being entrusted with that sort of on-ball responsibility? Because that happens to be your best player. Like, your point guard these days is overwhelmingly your best offensive player. It's just your primary ball handler. It's whoever you want making the most decisions, making the most plays with the ball in their hands. And Josh Giddey may get that sort of opportunity in Chicago, but long-term, I think that you are going to be disappointed if he's in that role, because he's not going to shoot like this all the time. And also, obviously, the level of play that he is facing is going to be significantly higher. Like, this isn't moving the needle on Josh Giddey for me, but he did play well.
He did. The level of competition point is one that I was going to make too, but the other aspect that I was impressed with Giddey, just it seemed like there was a concerted effort from Giddey to get downhill consistently. And that's where I think he can get better. He hit that one kind of janky, weird step-back floater from, like, the elbow. That was a cool shot. They're not the prettiest shots, but if Giddey can reliably again, this is against a completely different level of competition than the NBA, but if he can reliably get downhill more and manufacture easy looks for himself, that would legitimately move me. Again, I'm going to need to see it more consistently. I'm going to need to see it next season before I move too, but that was where I was most impressed with Giddey, is just he continued to aggressively work downhill, and that's where I think he's at his best.
Yeah, but that's so different, because in the NBA, he's such a clearly below average athlete, where in these international competitions, that's not nearly as much the case. Let's look forward to the semifinal. We already touched on it a little bit, but I do think the question is not if Serbia can hang offensively, it's if they can hang defensively. I don't like their chances there. I do think that they have to outshoot Team USA from beyond the arc. And the reality is that in that first game, I mean, it was just brutal for Serbia. They were 9 of 37 from deep, and Team USA could not miss. They were 18 of 32. And although I do think that USA was getting more wide open looks than Serbia was, I mean, USA got a lot of wide open looks from deep in that game, the disparity in shot quality was not the same as the disparity in percentage there. And if there is an area where Serbia can hang, I do think it's in their ability to shoot the ball. There's a lot of good shooters on this team. And then you mentioned it, like, if Nikola Jokic is not on the floor, how can Serbia possibly be competitive? And I honestly don't think that there's an answer to that. And I think that it's probably worth Jokic playing 38 of 40 minutes in this game. Let's say not full 40, because I think even a minute or two of rest is valuable. And it's reminiscent of Game 7 against Minnesota, right, where he plays 46 minutes and he's noticeably gassed, and it affects the level that he's playing at. But, like, if you just look at the course of these Olympics, first matchup against Team USA, Serbia plays USA evenly in the minutes that Nikola Jokic is on the floor. 31 minutes, they are dead even. 9 minutes, they are minus 26 with him off the floor. That is the entire point differential of the game. This one, as you mentioned, where Serbia is in this deep hole, They were plus 17 with Jokic on the floor. They were minus 12 with him off it. So I just don't think that you can account for that lack of size, for that lack of rebounding, honestly, for that lack of defense within like the scope of this roster, because he does bring that size. He brings his hands, he brings his IQ, brings the monstrous rebounding value. And then obviously the fact that he is far and away their best scorer, he's far and away their best passer. Like, I like Serbia as a team, but without Nikola Jokic, even though, I mean, props to them. They made the FIBA World Cup final last year. To be fair, a lot of teams didn't send like the best of their best. But you're not competing against an actual Team USA in any minutes when Jokic is off the floor.
100%. And the only thing that I think I would do defensively, at least what I would try, dude, I think I'm running a 2-3 zone the whole game. And the reason I would do that is I think I'm just going to camp Jokic in the paint. If there's one thing that I'm going to try to do is just keep him near the rim where he can make plays on shots at the rim where he can protect it, and try to keep him from defending in space too much. I think that, like I said, I don't think it's going to be an utter beatdown. I think Jokic has such a dog aspect in him. I don't think he's going to let Serbia get, completely wiped, but I am going to take the United States. I do think there's a athleticism gap, there's a size gap that I just don't think Serbia can make up for. But, as you said, man, the three ball is the great equalizer in basketball. U.S. goes a little bit cold. Maybe they don't hit as many threes. Serbia has a complete flip around. It could be a close game, but I am going to take the United States. I think Jokic is going to ball out, though, man. I think Jokic could very well be the best player on the court in that game.
I fully expect him to, dude. I mean, he certainly was the first time they met, I would say. Except, I mean, actually, KD was pretty ridiculous in that game. KD literally couldn't miss in that game. But, like, Jokic was ridiculously impactful in that game, but I do think he's going to see a lot of doubles because there's nobody you can defend him one-on-one in the post. Embiid can't do it. Bam can't do it. AD can't do it. I think that we're going to see them send to a decent amount, and then the burden is on everybody else to execute offensively. I don't know how I feel about the 2-3 just because, A, I don't know that I want to test Team USA's shooting, and B, I just think that with Petrushev out there, it's like one of them is going to be guarding in space at some point, kind of no matter what. I mean, they're running a too big look. Petrushev does guard in space pretty well, though, I will say. I do want to give him props for that. But I'm going to predict Team USA wins this game by 12 points. I think that it is more competitive than the group stage game because I think Serbia is going to shoot better. I don't think USA will be as overwhelming. I think that Jokic will play even more. I think he will play 36, 38, could even play 40 minutes. But ultimately, I mean, there is just still a talent gap that's too big to overcome here. Serbia may have the best player on the floor, but the 12 next most talented players are all on Team USA. And I think the Bogey will play well. I think Bogey will have a big game just because he's like that. Know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook.
It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier or any simpler. Baseball, golf, UFC, there's something for every fan of every sport to bet on at DraftKings. And I know it's early, but football season will be here before you know it.
And if you're new to DraftKings, you gotta check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Okay, let's flip to the other side of the bracket, Logan. Canada-France was a very interesting quarterfinal, and we got ourselves an upset here. The Canadians fell to the Frenchmen on their home court. What did you take away from this one?
Oh, the first thing I want to address is this Rudy Gobert thing that's going around right now because he plays 3 minutes and he got benched. I think this is getting completely overblown on social media because people are bored. The reason that people were bugging about this is because Gobert claimed that he was out because of a finger injury. The French coach claims that it's just matchups. Rudy Gobert had surgery on his finger yesterday. I think that's the only reason that he didn't get burned. I think it's a little bit of both. I think maybe the French coach wanted different matchups. I also think that they probably didn't want to rush him out there after he was just under the knife yesterday. So I just want to get that out there. I think that is probably the most overblown story of the Olympics so far.
Yeah. Also, I mean, if you just think about the fact that they went away from the Gobert and Wemby starting lineup, I think that is very intuitive because Canada is such a perimeter-oriented team, right? I mean, their only front court player in the starting lineup is the great Dwight Powell. So on that front, it makes a lot of sense. I think that you're probably right about the finger thing. Obviously, it's weird that Lesor is getting minutes over him, but Lesor played really well. What's weird is just that they played Rudy for 3 minutes at all. That's where I do wonder about the finger thing, because it's like, if he's out, wouldn't he be out? I don't know, but I agree. I don't think that it's a big deal. I mean, there's all sorts of weird stuff that goes on with these international rosters because they can't deliberately construct them as a basketball team, right? They're not a front office. They're not drafting for positional needs. They just have the personnel that they have. And it's like, you see that with a bunch of these teams. Canada is super perimeter centric. They're lacking in front court talent. France has 2 great centers who are their best players, but when it comes to skill in the backcourt, things are rough. Serbia, right, has a bunch of offensively skilled players. They don't have high-end athletes. They don't have a lot of high-end defenders. Like, every team except for Team USA is basically limited in some way, and there's just some redundancies. So Gobert just playing 3 minutes is obviously weird, but I wouldn't think about it too much going forward. I would expect him to start in the semifinal against Germany. I would certainly expect him to play a lot more than he did in this one.
Well, I think they have a significant advantage in that regard, and I would try to exploit Germany's lack of front court size and depth by putting both those guys out there. Germany normally trots out Tice at the 5. I think Germany should make the adjustment to probably trot out Franz, Mo, and Tice in that matchup, because I just think that they're going to be a little bit overwhelmed if they don't. I first want to give some props to some other French guys here, man. Yabusele went nuts.
Oh my God.
22, 5 and 1 on 6 of 9 shooting, 2 of 4 from deep. He had this sick no-look dime to Cordinier. I don't know, man. This game had me thinking, like, Yabusele might need a shot back in the league, bro. Big wing. Just showcase a little bit of everything, man. Moving off ball, knocking down shots.
Logan, you cannot get sold by somebody being powered by love for country. It can compel you to do incredible things that you can't replicate in the NBA.
It is endearing to a lot of these guys watching them just play above their traditional means, man, because it does mean more. It means a lot to these guys, man. It's they were talking about this on some of the broadcasts, but it's not like a playoff run. We were talking about this earlier. There's no taking your foot off the pedal. It's all go all the time. The Cordinier guy was knocking down all kinds of shots. He had 2 nasty transition pull-up threes, 20 points. Fournier hits a clutch floater. He has that deep 3 at the end of the game. A lot of those guys, just great performances. And then, on the other side of this, SGA is just left alone by himself. I felt so bad for SGA in this game. He gives you 27 points, does what he normally does. Jamal Murray has been resoundingly bad in these Olympics. He's putting up 6 points per game on 29% from the field, 14% from deep. In this last game, he gives you 7 points on 3 of 13 from the field. It just felt like Canada needed more floor spacing and a little more offensive punch. I like the tandem of Brooks and Dort defending on the perimeter, but I probably would give Nembhard, or I would have given Nembhard a little bit more burn with the offense struggling like it is. They just needed a little more punch from somebody not named SGA. And you know what, man? There's a lot of bad discourse going on about Jamal Murray right now. I don't really feel too differently about Jamal Murray. I think it's inherent with his play style. You're going to have bad games, man. He's a tough shot maker. This is going to happen sometimes. The guy that I really want to get on is Dillon Brooks, man. Brooks in this game, 2 points, 3 boards, 1 assist. He goes 1 of 9 from the field and 0 of 3 from deep. And you know what, man? Dillon Brooks isn't the best offensive player. He's not a great offensive player whatsoever, right? No. He's out there to play defense. So why, with 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds on the shot clock, why are you taking a turnaround post fade from inside the elbow, Dillon?
Because he's like that.
You've got a 7'4" guy with an 8-foot wingspan standing about a foot away from you, and you decide, yeah, man, that's the shot I want. With Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, calmly waiting for the basketball. RJ Barrett on the other side. Just dump the ball off, man. That is like the lowest IQ shot I've seen in a basketball game since Denzel Valentine pulled up from 40 feet, man. Dillon Brooks sucks, man. That dude is an actual bum. That's one of my big takeaways. That guy still stinks, man.
Huge 1 of 9 game from Dillon Brooks. Yeah, this was a disappointing showing from Canada in a lot of ways. You kind of brushed past the Jamal thing. I am not as unbothered by this as you are, because this is just an extended stretch of basketball now where the guy has sucked. I mean, the playoffs were absolutely brutal, and now he gives you in the Olympics 6 points per game on 29% from the field, 14% from deep, and there is volatility that is inherent to his game. That has been the reality for him forever because, as you mentioned, his shot diet is so reliant upon tough pull-up jumpers. And no matter how good you are at those shots, there's just going to be variance if you aren't getting to the line a lot, if you aren't getting to the rim a lot. However, this is next level. And I do think if there's a clear lack of explosion right now, not to say that he is ever like the quickest guy, but he is quick, and you're not seeing that. You didn't see that in the playoffs. And of course, he had the calf injury, and I don't know if the calf injury is still lingering. I don't know if he's just out of shape. But the Jamal Murray that we're seeing right now is struggling in every conceivable way. He doesn't look the same athletically, and he's missing every shot. And when he's in an important role for you, and when he's eating up this offensive usage, and he's just wasting possessions, like, that's brutal, and it's very costly to your team. And when you have that on top of Dillon Brooks going 1 for 9, like, yeah, it's tough. So those were big issues for Team Canada. As I mentioned earlier, I mean, just the lack of front court talent is going to be the biggest thing for them going forward, because this crop of guards is not going anywhere. I mean, Jamal and Shai and RJ, and even if you want to mix Andrew Nembhard into that, like, they are already rich with talent in that respect. But Dwight Powell being your starting center is not good. Khem Birch being your other option. I would like to see more Kelly Olynyk minutes. I understand that he's not the best athlete, but I think that he is just clearly the best player out of that crop. But they're very limited in terms of their options, and they shot like shit in this game. That's one thing. They're 5 of 21 from deep, but I just don't really like the feel of their offense. Like, a lot of these international teams, you do feel that there's a chemistry there. These guys have been playing together. There's a selflessness. I mean, Serbia is like the epitome, right? Where you have very organized offense, lots of high IQ, unselfish, skilled players. Canada has a bunch of talent. There's a lot of one-on-one offense, and there's a lot of spots in which it feels a little disjointed, a little stagnant, as though you want to be getting more guys involved, moving the ball more. And I think that part of that is just sort of their best players are Shai, who is a very ISO-heavy player, RJ, who is another on-ball creator, decent playmaker, but wants to have the ball in his hands a lot. Jamal, right, on-ball creator, not the best playmaker. But I would like to see a more dynamic offensive approach from them. They're 99th percentile in terms of their isolation frequency, and I do think that you feel the offense gets bogged down by that a little at times. So it's disappointing for Canada. On the flip side for France, I mean, you mentioned the heroes. Yabusele was a problem in this game. Cordonier shot the hell out of the ball. Lesor stepping up, taking up those Gobert minutes. He played a really good game. Those are all outlier performances, though. Like, those guys have not been playing at that level throughout the Olympics. They're not that caliber of players overall, but you need that to compensate for a rough offensive game from Wemby, which is what this was. Nice passing, and defensively he did his job, right? Great hands. He has been generating a bunch of steals throughout the Olympics. Massive deterrent still. You feel that presence constantly throughout this game. Controlled the glass. It's just he wasn't getting himself the easy stuff offensively, and his shot was off. He goes 0 of 6 from deep, but that's my biggest concern for France by far, is there's an insane burden on Wemby because of the lack of offensive skill in the backcourt. I mean, you start Frank Ntilikina, he's supposed to be like your ball handler, your initiator. It's not going to work, man. So the challenge for them is going to be finding the balance of maximizing their defensive ceiling, maximizing their size, because that is absolutely where they are at their best as a basketball team, and finding enough offensive skill. But Wemby is still just not the most mature, refined offensive creator. What is insane is just his pure size and athleticism as a finisher. And that's where I just continue to want to see a playmaker spoon feed him opportunities around the rim. I hope that CP3 is a step in the right direction. He will be a step in the right direction. He's obviously not the permanent answer, but Wemby's just not getting that. He still played well over the course of the Olympics. This just was a bad offensive game for him. What are you thinking as we look ahead to this semifinal between Germany and France?
I think it's going to be an absolute battle, man. What it comes down for me, though, is I think Germany has more skill, but I like France's size. And if they lean into that, I think they can dominate the glass. They can be a bigger deterrent around the rim. I'm leaning France just because of the athletic and the size differences, but I agree with you. I think that Germany's got more skill, and that's the big concern with France all along, right? If Cordinier is not drilling threes, if Fournier is not turning back the clock, hitting all of these big shots, if Yabusele is not, lights out, they don't win this basketball game. Canada played down, France played up. That's going to happen in some games, but I like the size advantage that France can lean into if they trot back out Gobert and Wemby, and I think that's what they should do. Also, looking long-term, man, the fact that I know Sarr was rough in Summer League, too. The fact that they got that guy, too, long-term, man, their size is just freakish on the interior.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously you have Shai, and you obviously have Salon. For the Frenchmen have taken over the league, man. I mean, 3 of the top 7 picks this year is crazy after having the number 1 pick last year and the number 7 pick last year, and they have Killian Hayes. They're generating an absurd amount of talent. I want to pick France. I think it would be sick to see Wemby in an Olympic final already, but this German team is really good, man, and we're not going to talk in depth about their matchup against Greece just because they disposed of them pretty easily, and there's a pretty massive talent gap there when you just look at the rosters outside of Giannis, but the gap to me is just the reliable perimeter creation. I mean, Franz and Schroeder both are playing at such a high level. Franz is giving you 21 and 5 on 50% from the field, and that's while he's been off from deep. Schroeder is giving you 18 points and 9 assists per game on 52% from the field. There is just an ability to consistently drive, to pressure the rim, to finish around the rim, and to play make, to facilitate for a team that is just skilled offensively and has the athletes to defend solidly. They don't have the defensive ceiling of France, of course, because Wemby and Gobert out there together is ridiculous. And Wemby alone, I mean, Canada scored 10 points in the first quarter of this game. But I just struggle to find an offensive lineup for France where I'm happy with that. I think I'm good with that. I think that I would like to see more of Koulibaly because he's really good. I don't know, maybe it's some NBA bias, but I do think that he gives you a versatile defensive option who's a capable offensive player. But when I think about wanting to have multiple dudes who can guard Schroeder, who can guard Franz Wagner, I think if you go with a configuration of Koulibaly and Batum and the 2 bigs, that's the ideal outcome defensively. But then you really need an offensive guard in that last spot. And Ntilikina is a very good defender. He is obviously a horrible offensive player. Fournier is their best offensive guard. He is not that sort of ball handler, though. But if I were doing things, that might be the lineup I go with. Fournier, Koulibaly, Batum, and the 2 bigs. It's clunky. It is lacking in ball handling. But you're maximizing your defensive ceiling. You have shooting at the very least. And I guess maybe you just need Wemby to go crazy. But in what world do you not need that? I don't think that is going to be the starting lineup, to be clear, but in a vacuum, that might be what I would do.
I don't know. I'm definitely giving Cordinier some burn, too, man. I think you need some shooting or some sort of ball handling.
Koulibaly can shoot.
Yeah, I do worry about them having anybody who can handle the rock. Are we running point Nick Batum, man? Is that what it's come to?
No, I think it would be point Fournier, bro.
Point Fournier. Dude, that 40-footer he hit was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so you're going France.
I'm going to take France, yeah.
I'm going to take Germany. This German national team is really, really good. They won the FIBA World Cup, and I think they're in good position to get back to the final. But I would like to see France. I would like to see Wemby pull through. I think that would be Very fun. Very exciting. All right. Any final thoughts on international basketball, on the Olympics as a whole before we sign off here, Logan?
I got one question for you.
Ooh.
Well, who are you taking right now if you had to put on a team to win? Are you taking the
Oh,
U.S.?
come on. Oh, come on. Bro, I'd be shocked if Team USA doesn't win. I would be shocked.
Who do you think is going to be their best player over their next 2 games if we get them?
That's a good question.
I think I might take Book, man. With the level that he's been at, I might take Book. Or it kind of depends on who gets burned because I could see KD going off.
Yeah, that's
too.
what I'm almost inclined to say KD. It's just he's not starting, but the minute balance is still pretty even. I'd say probably either KD or LeBron. They've been the most consistent players for the team, and I would expect that to continue. I'll go LeBron just because I think that the multifaceted impact is so consistent with him, and he's defending pretty well. I mean, he's doing his job as a helper, playmaking really well, but I'd be shocked if they don't win, man. I mean, anytime that Team USA sends a full strength group, they win, right? Like, think about the shockwaves that 2004 sent throughout the nation. I don't know that that's happening again. And we had a little mini version of that with FIBA last year, but, that was the Austin Reeves show.
That was the B team, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that was the C team, bro. I mean, Ant and Hallie, and then it's like, yeah, Austin Reeves, let's see what you can do. That was a little bit silly. You agree?
Yeah, actually, the last guy I want to mention is maybe Anthony Edwards, too. I can see Ant.
This bro loves Ant.
How can you not, man? I do love Anthony Edwards.
This bro loves Ant. I would like to say AD. I just don't think AD is going to get the minutes, but I do think that AD is a very, very nice fit. I love the AD and Bam lineups. I think that is fun. It's
by far their best defensive lineup, too, man.
Versatile bigs. Yeah, for sure. Who do you think is their biggest threat? You think it's France?
That's a good question. Jokic scares me. Jokic legitimately scares me.
That's fair.
Jokic scares the shit out of me. I honestly think their toughest matchup might be Serbia just because they've got the best player on the court.
Yeah, it's not a bad take, dude, because, like, what is the path to Germany upsetting a full-strength Team USA? I don't know, but they are just a better, more complete team than Serbia, I think. But the gap between the best players is obviously big. Yeah, I think that Serbia is the best offense. I think that Germany has better two-way balance. And I think that Serbia has the best player. Germany has the better depth. I'll say that Germany is the biggest threat, but I do think that Serbia is a pretty good challenge.
I'll take Serbia.
Okay, all right, I like it. So we'll see what happens in this semi. We'll see if Serbia can live up to the hype. I'm a little bit bummed that we're getting rematches of what we've already seen in the group stage with both. Like, these are good semis. I think clearly these are 4 of the 5 best teams, Canada being the 5th, of course. But we've already seen France-Germany, and we've already seen USA-Serbia. I would have liked to see flip. Let's see USA, France, Serbia, Germany. But
I don't know.
whatever.
It's a little bit of a revenge tour. I like running it back.
Yeah, a little bit of a revenge tour. I do think we're going to see more competitive games in both.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, well, we should be back unless one of us dies of a heart attack reacting to those games. If you guys enjoyed this one, we'll see. This is our first Olympic basketball content, but it's been fun to watch, and we're really getting into the good stuff now. So if you want more of our stuff, check us out on YouTube. We have all of our full shows here. You can listen to the show across audio platforms. You can check out our content across social media, TikTok, Instagram, @NerdSesh, Twitter, @nerd_sesh. And we will have another trivia episode coming out very soon with some very fun guests. So stay dialed in for that. You can check out our merch at thevolume.com, and you can join our Discord to chat with the fellas. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. And if you want to see me stream NCAA Football 25, which I am awful at, follow us on Twitch, nerd_sesh. We ran it yesterday. We got shellacked in 2 out of 3 games, but we're only getting better, and we're having fun, and that's what matters at the end of the day. So stay tuned in for all that if you want. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was NerdSesh.